Do we have any guests? Do we have any guests from the host CSB?
They're in the listening room.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, well, I would welcome all them here this evening. We look forward to hearing from you soon. We do have Jennifer Hazon, Executive Director of the Association of CSBs here. We'd like to welcome you as well.
Thank you.
And we would, at this point, we'd ask for an update from you on the listening sessions that we're holding throughout the state.
Sure. Well, thank you again for inviting me here to provide an update to the board. So what I can tell you is that at present, as of the last time I checked, probably 30 minutes ago, across all of the listening sessions, we have 109 individuals, 109 individuals registered. We did not require a registration because we wanted to make sure that it was a perfectly open event. You can always anticipate that some of the folks who register won't show up and some folks who don't register will show up. And we're hovering, today we've had 26 individuals who signed up to participate in the listening session across the hall. We already have 32 who are signed up at the Fairfax listening session. And then the numbers are 7, 3, and 4 for Hanover, Hampton, Hanover, Norfolk, and Charlottesville. We have 2 in Abingdon, and then so far we have 34 folks signed up for the all virtual event, which will happen February 12th, I believe. And I would anticipate that as each of those outlying dates approaches, we'll get more interest. Certainly the CSBs will continue to circulate the information as appropriate. To give you an idea of the mix of folks that we know have signed up for these listening sessions, and this is again just folks who have registered in advance, recognizing that there are people who show up spontaneously. It does skew towards private providers and government entities, but there are a number of individuals who signed up with no affiliation, and so what we're hopeful about is that those are individuals themselves or family members who have loved ones who are in service or with lived experience. And so we'll be able, I think, to get a feel for that tonight at this listening session and see how that goes. So following the Fairfax session, I'll be updating all of the materials to remove these first 2 listening sessions and to provide an update according to a conversation that Mr. McDowell and I will have about the April date and nailing down the final date for the Norfolk event. And once all of that is in place, I anticipate probably by Monday, all the materials will go out again and we'll get a fresh round, I think, of interest at that time. And let's see. That is all that I have in the way of a formal update for you all on the listening sessions. The other thing that I want to mention is that we're going to take some guidance. I think it was a conversation that Mr. McDowell and I had about, making sure that we're really targeting underserved and underrepresented communities. And so I'm working with a few of the executive directors to see how we might not necessarily just distribute the information locally on a CSB by CSB basis to all of their community connections, but really dig deep and see where we can make some connections in underserved, traditionally underserved communities themselves. So regardless of where they live, to be able to target full communities like that. So I just wanted to share that as well. And I'm happy to take any questions from any of you.
Well, thank you for that update. Does anybody have any questions? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I could add one comment.
Absolutely.
We're looking to continue to expand the marketing of these. So if members of the board have ideas of organizations or entities, people, groups that you feel like we should target, please just send that information to me. I'll work with Jennifer to get the word out. Adam Rosatelli for the session coming up tonight, I was able, excuse me, to reach out to all the members of the Virginia General Assembly who represent this area and to share the information with them. And that's a practice we're going to continue with the future sessions as well.
Great.
We thought about an editorial from one of the board members that would go into each one of the newspapers to explain what we're doing and the way to get awareness that way. Remember you wrote
Great idea.
wrote one that was very popular. So
We'll be happy to work with any of the members of the board that would like to write a letter and sort of quarterback getting that done. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Can I just say, I like that idea. I think it would be nice if maybe you could draft what you would want us to put into an editorial and get it out to each of us members, and then we can approach our local newspapers or media to put such a report out so that we're saying the same thing, across the board. That would be my suggestion.
That's a great idea, Sheriff.
Absolutely.
And then perhaps we can regionally take this on too, if it, in having, I know Sarah and I can tackle the local media market and use our contacts there, like the sheriff's suggesting. So perhaps we can all do that in our particular areas throughout the Commonwealth and get a great attendance, because that is the purpose of all these listening sessions, to actually have a lot of participation. So, and 29 tonight, it sounds promising. So, all right, hearing no other comments or questions, I'm going to go on to get an update from the grants committee. Dr. Melton.
yes, the grants committee met on November 16th. The Virginia Associations of Community Services Board hosted our meeting at the Glen Ellen offices. This meeting was noticed and open to the public. I was elected to serve as the committee chair. Our excellent staff provided an overview of the timeline for the upcoming grant processes for the cities and the counties, and that grant period will officially open on January 19th, so coming up very quickly, and will close on May 5th. The grants committee also reviewed the schedule of 7 listening sessions that are planned. The committee agreed for staff to draft the grants guidance document that will provide information such as eligibility requirements, allowable uses, approval and denial processes, the terms and conditions, and other details. In addition, the committee will be reviewing the internal processes used by the OAA in reviewing all the proposals. We also directed staff to bring these documents and processes to the committee for review at our next meeting on January the 6th. Members of the committee can be contacted individually by the staff for assistance in specific topic areas as needed. And our draft minutes from that meeting are posted on our OAA website. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Melton or comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Holland, Treasurer. I just want to chime in for a moment just to say thanks for meeting them far away, but I'm chiming in with you to say hello. And I appreciate the work of the grants committee because we need to get moving on that. So thank you so very much for allowing me to say that briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. I'm glad you joined us.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Melton? Tony, any comments on that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right. So now we're going to go on and we'll get an update from the Office of the Attorney General.
Great. Well, good evening. Thank you all for having me with you. I'm Rich Schweiker, Chief of the Consumer Protection Section in the AG's office. And we, of course, are handling the investigations, litigation, and settlements of the opioid matter. So I've prepared a 4-page document. Looks like you guys got it there. Fantastic. Great. So thank you so much for getting that out to everybody. So basically what you have before you is a listing of the settlements that we've announced. They're in 2 categories. So the first category are finalized settlements, which we have 4 that are in that category. The second category are settlements that we've announced in principle, but have not yet been finalized. And there's 5 in that category. The document provides basically our updated estimates for how much money we believe will be coming to the Commonwealth, and specifically to the Opioid Abatement Authority. Where we can do it, we break down the amounts that will come to Virginia in total, and then specifically how much would come to the authority, to the state, and to the localities. So I've given you a breakdown of the total figures, future payment schedules, The first part of this document is very similar to the PowerPoint presentation I gave at the September meeting, where the numbers have not really changed for the McKinsey distributors or the Janssen settlements, since those were finalized before the September meeting. And so just some of the top line figures are, with McKinsey, it's a $13.7 million settlement, all of which is going to the authority, and you have already received 11.9 million of that money. Distributors, you'll see the total expected for the authority is 232.7 million, and you have already received 20.4 million of that. On the second page, you'll see there's a summary for the Janssen or Johnson & Johnson settlement, which the authority is expected to receive 53.5 million, and you've already received 39.8 million. And you may recall that's a settlement where we have certain incentives where we could get a lot of the money front loaded. So the bulk of that money has already come in and been distributed. And then of course, there's the breakdown for future payments there. The Mallinckrodt settlement, so that has some updated figures. They're not too different from what we were expecting. It's very, very slightly less. So we're anticipating that the authority will receive approximately 13.5 million from that settlement. And at this point, we believe that you'll get that first payment in the first quarter of next year. So that's approximately 1.9 million in the first quarter. Now, the remainder of the Mallinckrodt payment will be paid over 8 years, and there are annual installment payments of differing amounts. But this settlement, as I mentioned before, has the option for Mallinckrodt to make some prepayments, and that will change the amount and the time frame. But right now, what we're trying to give you is, what we expect to receive, and another caveat I'll give, which is on the first page, that footnote at the bottom of the first page underscores that these are estimates and they're contingent on a number of things, particularly with regard to the settlements I'm about to talk about. They're contingent on us getting full participation and us meeting certain incentives. So now I'd really like to turn to the settlements that have been announced but not finalized. And here's where I think there's the most new information for you all. Because 3 of these settlements, we had announced 2 previously. We had announced Teva and Allergan, but really when we announced them, we just had an agreement on the dollar amounts, but the terms of the settlements were not complete. And so now that just before Thanksgiving, that was all finalized. And close in time to that, we announced a settlement with Walmart, which had not previously been announced. So I want to talk about those 3 settlements right now in terms of time frame. This is not reflected in the handout. So just to let you know where those stand, we do have complete settlement documents. They have been distributed to all of the states. And so we're in a basically a 30-day period right now where state AGs have the opportunity to decide whether or not they're going to join the settlements. That period is going to expire December 15th for Walmart and December 22nd for the other 2 settlements, Teva and Allergan. That then will trigger a 14-day period for the defendants or the prospective defendants to decide whether or not they want to go forward. So whether or not enough states say they want to be part of these settlements. If they do want to go forward, then they have 15 days to notify the localities, political subdivisions about the settlements, and in turn give them an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to participate. And that's a 90-day period for the locality to decide whether or not to join, which then triggers another about 2-week period for the defendants to say whether or not they want to go forward based on the level of subdivision participation. So all that basically boils down to, it'll be April or May or so before we know if we have a final deal. We're certainly optimistic that enough states will join, that the defendants will want to go forward, and that enough localities will join that the defendants will want to go forward. But that gives you the little time frame that it's not yet finalized. So with regard to Walmart, the most recently announced settlement, you'll see that we project that the authority will receive $33.6 million from that settlement. And Walmart, of these three settlements, Walmart is one where there's an incentive where you can get the payments front loaded. Otherwise, it's a 6-year payment settlement. If Virginia qualifies for all the incentives, which includes getting our localities on board, getting releases from some other political subdivisions, such as certain towns, hospital authorities, similar to what we had to do with the Janssen settlement. If we get all of those entities to participate or release claims, then we will get these payments in what we estimate to be the second and third quarter of next year. And that's a whole settlement. So the authority would get all of that money in next year. Again, I think I have second and third quarter. It might actually be it's probably the third and fourth quarter. I might have a mistake there with regard to Walmart. It's going to be close on the time frame. But again, that otherwise, if we don't meet all those incentives, it'll be spread out over 6 years. Now, Teva, on the next page, you'll see the numbers for Teva, where we're estimating that the authority would receive $48.6 million. The payments would start in the third quarter of 2023, and then you'll see there's a payment schedule of equal amounts of about $3.76 million that would come in each year through 2035. Now, one thing about Teva that I want to just highlight is, I mentioned this before, is that Teva does have an option where the state could choose to receive product, specifically naloxone. The figures in front of you are if the state chooses not to receive naloxone. The figures would be different. And that's a determination that doesn't need to be made until the spring. It's also a determination that could be made every year. I believe it's every 2 years. And that would change the dollar amounts if the state chooses to select to take product. Then moving on to Allergan, you have the numbers there where we would project the authority would receive $26.7 million. And those would all be in equal payments of about $3.8 million starting in the third quarter of next year and running through July 2029. And then the last page just has the same information that was previously provided about Purdue and Endo, where those are really the most contingent of the settlements, where they're both pending in bankruptcy courts. Purdue's on an appeal. So I've given the estimates for what the authority could receive at $56.5 million under Purdue and $5.1 million for Endo. And those are paid out over 18 and 10 years respectively. So the grand total here is that the authority would receive about $484 million. Again, a lot of contingencies in there. And also, we've already transferred to the authority about $72 million. So that is it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rich. Does anybody have any questions? A lot of numbers there. We have them before. So if you have any questions for Rich, he's certainly an expert on all of this, and we appreciate his commitment to it.
So with some of the earlier agreements, I know that we had to get all the localities to sign on, and basically kind of the state got a bonus, if you will, with that. And I know you mentioned earlier that there were additional agreements coming up where we're going to have, is it going to be something similar like that, where we're going to have to then sort of corral all the different localities across the state as well?
Yeah, so specifically with regard to the 3 settlements, so we've got the 4 settlements that are essentially done, and then there's 5 out there. The 3 that we're working on right now, so Walmart, Teva, and Allergan, they all do have participation incentives. It's fairly complicated with incentives A, B, C, D, E. They have to do with population issues, what localities join or don't join. But yes, the localities will need to make a decision about whether to join. So this is similar to what happened with the distributors and Janssen settlements. Now, one thing that is different is we previously, the localities had to join a memorandum of understanding with the state that had to do with how we would allocate the money. So all of the localities have already done that. So that's already taken care of. Now they just have to decide whether or not they want to participate in these specific settlements. So when I was talking earlier about this time frame, we're at the beginning of this time frame where states now have to decide whether to join. And if a sufficient number of states decide to do that, then the localities will have 90 days to decide whether or not to join. They will get notice from the defendants, really from a settlement administrator, like what happened the last time, where they will get notice of the settlements and be given the opportunity to choose whether or not to participate. There'll be, I suspect it will be done very similarly, if not identically, where there will be a registration and a portal for them to get onto, but they will get direct notice of that opportunity. And then we, in turn, as we did with the prior settlements, our office will work closely with the council that's representing the localities that have outside counsel, as well as communicating with county and city attorneys to make sure they're aware of everything, and so that they will have sufficient time and take the action that they will need to take, which I would assume would again include going before either their city councils or county boards to pass or adopt resolutions to join the settlement. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Only one other quick question, sir, is you said 72 million already transferred to the authority. Does that include the money that went to the localities?
No, this is just the money to the authority, because the money to the localities. So stepping back, the way these settlements are handled globally, we have money that goes from the settlement administrator that goes to the state and that goes directly to the localities.
Right.
Then the state's receiving the money, and we're getting the share that goes to the Opioid Abatement Authority directly to the authority. So our office has initiated and seen that the transfers have been completed for the McKinsey money and the distributor and the Janssen money that's come in so far. So if you add up the authority share of those three settlements to date, that would be 72 million.
Okay.
And just add on, so that's McKinsey's 11.9, distributors 20.3, and Janssen. Yeah, right.
Janssen is
And
at
then
39.7.
39.7.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's where the 70 is coming from. And Rich, do you know how much the state has received at this point?
So it's 23.5. So yeah, anyway, I could look it up, but I've had to say it a few times. So it's 23.5, and that's just from the distributors and Janssen, because just as a reminder to folks, we made a determination to take the McKinsey money, which was just a state settlement, did not involve any localities, and direct all of that money to the authority so that you all would basically have money to get started with. So anyway, yeah, it's 23.5 million, and that money is sitting in our office escrow account for appropriation by the governor and the General Assembly.
Right. And then the locality, you have the total figure for the locality.
I have that, but not in front of me, so I'm not.
Okay.
I might have it actually in the email here. Yeah, I don't think I have that right immediately in front of
That's
me.
okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you, Rich. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Matt.
Yeah.
Rich, could you speak briefly about CVS and Walgreens? I know that some members have seen that in the media.
Yeah, so it's gonna be really brief, because basically what happened with CVS and Walgreens is there have been ongoing settlement negotiations with CVS and Walgreens. They are not finalized yet. CVS and Walgreens chose to announce what they amounts that they believe there's been an agreement reached in principle. And I think it was really in connection with them needing or wanting to make certain financial disclosures in connection with their public reporting, basically. It's escaping me the specific term or section or under which they were making these financial disclosures, but, oh, I lost you all for a second. So they have announced the monetary side of things. We've not, on the state side, we've not issued any announcement or projected our figures yet because we're still waiting for those to get to the point that basically Walmart is at. There is hope that that will be done very soon. And also it's probably, this ties into the prior question about the localities and participation. What we're hoping to do is we're hoping that the notification to the localities will be done at the same time for Walmart, Teva, and Allergan, even though they're about a week apart from one another, just to simplify it for the localities, that they'll get notice of all of these at the same time. We were hoping that that would be the case with CVS and Walgreens, but because there aren't final settlement agreements yet, that's it's not quite looking like that's going to happen. I hope that's helpful, Tony. It's just that's where people will have seen things in the news, but we haven't released anything yet because on the state side, we just hadn't felt that we were close enough to a done deal. But you may also have noticed that CVS and Walgreens made that announcement. Walmart did not make an announcement at the same time. And then Walmart, we now have essentially the final term for the deal. And so Walmart just waited to make an announcement until we had everything tied up. But those are the only other ones that are out there in the public realm that have been mentioned.
And the Teva, the settlement, you had mentioned that the state would have the option to do product versus money, and that's a determination the Attorney General will make. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is my understanding. At least the Attorney General will need to report that decision. I don't have. That was one of the things I was trying to look at to get some clarity on before this about the whole decision-making process for that, but I didn't get all that information for you. So we can provide an update on that, but it is my understanding that there'll be, one decision made on behalf of the state as opposed to, say, every entity that might get money from this settlement deciding, and that my understanding is that decision will likely, I believe it needs to be made sometime in the spring. So there's a little bit more time on that. And I do think, again, it's worth noting what I said before is that this is something that had been kind of changed throughout the negotiations, but I believe where ultimately it landed is that instead of it being a one-time decision for the life of the settlement, it'll be every year, maybe every other year, a state could make or change its decision, so that in one year you may decide you want to get the product and another not get the product, and also might be able to decide to take, say there's 4 deliveries a year, could decide, well, we want 2 deliveries this year, and then take the cash difference. So they have a valuation for the cash, they have a valuation for the product. And the way the cash equivalent works is it's essentially, say, 20% of what they have valued the naloxone at, but there are different viewpoints about that valuation of naloxone that's built into the settlement as to whether, taking the cash in some people's view is a better deal. But I think it depends on how you're situated and what you would do and how you would handle distributing the naloxone in this type of a settlement.
Any other
I
questions?
have a lot of questions, but I'll save it for later.
Okay. Any other questions for Rich?
Well, certainly happy if there are other questions, happy to entertain them. And, Tony and James can certainly get questions to our team that are handling the investigations and the settlements, and get you all the information you need or you want to factor into any decisions.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. You're always a wealth of knowledge for us. So appreciate you being here and communicating all that stuff to us each time it's needed.
Thank you all for your great work. It's really exciting to see all that you're doing and the great team that Tony's building. So really appreciate that.
All right, and James.
Yeah,
Give it
thank
to
you.
now.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm going to address the proposed policy on the conflict of interest. It's in the packet you received. It's after the minutes. Many of you on the board are already been exposed to the Conflict of Interest Act. So, but this is more geared to the members where this might be the first time that you've been exposed to what commonly known as COIA, Conflict of Interest Act. On that page, you'll see that I put what I thought was the most pertinent as we prepare to do the work for the grants committee. We've already heard the money coming in, but now that we're about to send the money out, we of course are going to be fully transparent, and in doing so, avoid conflict of interest and mitigate any appearances of impropriety that we can do. If you were to print out the Conflict of Interest Act, it would be 22 full pages, and I was not about to bore each and every member of the board with that. And, yes, I was looking for gratitude in that regard. But I have several thou shall nots here: the prohibited conduct, the prohibited gifts, prohibited contracts. If you leave with nothing else tonight, just keep in mind that there's a prohibition of personal interest when you're voting on such grants that are coming up before you. And personal interest, as defined towards the bottom of the first page, equates to having a financial interest for the board member or a member of the immediate family. We go through two examples, and then I won't read for you what you've read for yourself. I guess the final paragraph procedurally is sort of the key. The executive director envisions that the grants would be voted in blocks, but what's imperative for the board so that you can determine whether there's a possible conflict of interest is board staff would be getting you the information ahead of time on what grants are coming up, so that you can make a personal determination whether there's a possible conflict of interest. And then depending on whether it's at the grants committee stage or at the board stage, the staff would be able to at least pull that individual possible grant. Then as a package, everybody can vote on the remaining block, and then that you would of course then have the opportunity to vote, minus the person who has a conflict, on the remaining grants that were pulled out of the block. So that's how we envision it going procedurally. Emphasize Conflict of Interest Act. Many of you had training. There are 2 full-time attorneys that answer questions at the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Advisory Council. We envision hopefully getting some training that all the members can be exposed to by having one of them make a presentation at another time. But otherwise, I'm pleased, I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I hope it's the pleasure of the board to adopt the policy.
Any questions for James?
Chairman, we do have this under new business.
Okay. Okay. Hearing no comments or questions, we'll move on to an update from our executive director. Tony?
Great, thank you. Charlie, do you have any presentation? I'm going to try to move this relatively quickly. I'd like to give the board just kind of an update on, excuse me, the activities taking place in the office, as well as around the state. And I'd like to begin by, we'll go to the next slide, Carol. Just sharing the fact that there's really 3 main, and there's a copy of this presentation in your staple packet. There's 3 areas of focus that the staff is working on, and they include the organization administration, information sharing and outreach, and facilitating, consulting, and toolkit development. And so as those sort of being the 3 areas, I'll move forward to the first one. Under organization administration, I'd like to take just a moment to introduce, I know I've introduced folks virtually and by email, but you've got your entire OAA staff present today. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce in the order in which they joined the team. Adam Rosatelli, I think probably everybody's had a chance to meet him so far, our Director of Finance. Charlie Linekim came on in early November.
Late, 2 weeks after Adam.
How's
As our
that?
Director of Operations, he's going to oversee all the outreach as well as the grants process and working with localities. And then Karen Moisan, who is going to be our administrative staff specialist. She's basically going to run the office. And she's going to be the point of contact for board members with anything you need logistically, scheduling, all that type of thing. Comes to us from the state police. And I'd also like to point out, if I may, Paula Najim, who's with us, is our she's a graduate level research intern for the Opioid Abatement Authority. She's a Fulbright scholar. Her full-time job back in Beirut, Lebanon, is that she's a senior programs associate at the Mentor Arabia Foundation. So she specializes in wellness and prevention, substance use prevention programs for adolescents. And it is here at BCU studying until end of March, April, and will be with us until at least February and possibly a little bit further. So thanks for being here. And so we had, some businesses will have a retreat for the staff to get to know each other. We spent the afternoon in a minivan together. So we get to figure each other out. So as you know, we've moved into our new office. We're going to be in that office for at least 5 years. We signed a 5-year lease on East Franklin Street. We're 2 blocks from the Capitol. So during General Assembly, if you need to come and speak up in the Capitol, you have a place that you can come and stay and work. We are struggling with some success to get all of our administrative legs under us. It's been probably one of the more difficult tasks as a startup. We've made good progress in some areas. We have additional progress that's still needed in others. But we're getting there. If it seems strange to you that there's something minor that you need and we're not able to do it, trust me, we share the frustration, but we're working on it. You've heard the report from the chair of the grants committee, Dr. Melton. We are actively working to build out the grants guidance documents, the training materials, the terms and conditions. So all of that is very much in progress. Charlie's burning the midnight oil on it. And similarly, I spoke with the chair earlier this week, and we're requesting that the chair consider appoint a finance committee that would specifically deal with things like long-term financial strategies, some internal controls policies, purchasing policies, and to talk about what type of approval level the finance committee could have to help us approve minor budget changes, so we don't have to bring minor changes to the full board for consideration. So just so everyone's aware, I spoke with the chairman about that. According to our bylaws, any subcommittee that we have or any committee that's formed, it has the chairman and the vice chair are automatically included in all committees, and all committees have to have at least 4 members. So the chair may be looking for some, in addition to the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer may be looking for additional. Moving to the next slide, Charlie, I promise I'll move quickly. We've been hitting every conference, webinar, and meeting we can force our way into. We've been asking for invitations. We've been inviting ourselves. We've been receiving invitations, and several times a week we're sharing information with the Opioid Abatement Authority to a wide number of audiences. As an example of that, the Virginia Institute of Government is hosting a session on December 8th, December 13th. We've shared this information with the board previously. I sent an email to every city and county administrator in the state this week, inviting them and their staff to participate in this information session. And VIG is specifically targeting budget officers, finance officers, commissioners of revenue, CSB employees, people that work throughout their city and county agencies, and issues related to opioid epidemic. And so we do feel like the word is getting out. Of course, the board is familiar with the listening sessions. We have the workshop scheduled for January 19th and 20th in Richmond. You'll see more information on that soon. We were invited to that by the co-sponsors, which is VACO, VML, and Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions. They're giving us the afternoon of the 19th to explain the grants process and how to apply. And the morning of the 20th, we're doing a best practices seminar, and our very own Sharon Buckman is going to be one of the presenters during that event. And so we're excited to see that come together. You have in your document, we have handouts here available. The Office of the Attorney General provided a document that I'm calling key elements. It's not legal advice, but it serves to provide information for localities about what they can and cannot, what they should and should not do with the direct shares they're receiving. And so that's a very timely and appreciated document that the Attorney General's office will share. The last item I wanted to talk about was basically what we've been talking about is what we're calling a toolkit. We view, I shouldn't say we, I know members of the board that I've spoken with have talked about the importance of this board acting as a matchmaker between cities and counties that have funds and are looking for ways to spend them to the best effect, and to the various types of programs, organizations, and providers who are out there, and to be a matchmaker in that sense. It's no accident that we're working closely with the Virginia Association of CSBs. We appreciate their help. We're also working with the Virginia chapter of the American Society of Addiction Medicine, of which Dr. Thompson is currently the president. And we're actually working with Duke University. They're doing a national study to put together a toolkit for states and opioid projects. And Hala is actually doing quite a bit of this work for us. She's developed a survey instrument for the CSBs and for health districts to collect information about programs that they have, and we're indicating, are they evidence-based? Are they credentialed? Are they have a record of success? Have they been given awards? And we're going to compile all this information and share it out to cities and counties as early as January 19th when we have the workshop. And so I just want the members of the board to know that that is continuing to move forward. And we are also trying to build a group that involves subject matter experts related to the opioid crisis, to prevention, to education, harm reduction, criminal justice diversion, recovery supports. And what you see in Virginia is there's not one single state agency that provides all those services. There are offices and individuals in a number of different agencies that work on these issues. And we're trying to pull, we are pulling together those individuals. We've already had one in-person meeting and lots of side conversations. And of course, you can't have a committee or group without giving it an acronym. So what we came up with was professionals investigating realistic addiction treatment and essential services, or IRADS. Using IRADS as a way of trying to motivate them to come to the meetings and participate.
You have to dress up.
You have to dress up.
Appreciate that. I was waiting for that. But it didn't accept you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, I know I'm running over my time, but we've really condensed a lot of information here. We are continuing to talk with our counterparts in other states about what North Carolina is doing, what Kentucky's doing, what Virginia's doing, what Colorado's doing, what Alaska's doing. And that network seems to be growing quickly, and we hope to pick up best practices, and if nothing else, make sure that we're keeping up with the rest of the country, and hopefully we. Last item I have is just a comment about the calendar of events and activities. You have, as of today, the most recent calendar provided in the board packet towards the end. We had a request from a member of the board to send these out as calendar invites. So we're going to begin doing that. If that messes your calendar up and you don't want us doing that, please just let Kara know, and we'll work with each board member how you want this information shared. And that is report.
Well, thank you, Tony. And I have no doubt that with the team that you've assembled, that we will be leading the nation. I have no doubt. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Tony? Okay. Well, hearing none, now we'll move on to new business. And with the new business, the state code and our bylaws require that the authority conduct an election of officers annually, and we'll conduct the nominations, elections during this meeting. The elections will be effective immediately. We'll be filling the positions of chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. Any member of the board can nominate himself or another member for any of these positions, and I encourage participation from all board members. Nominations do not require a second. However, any number of persons may second a nomination just so they're supported that nominee. And with that, I'd like to ask Tony to initiate nomination process for the office of chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So members of the board, nominations are now in order for the office of chair. Are there any nominations from the group?
Nominate Senator Todd Pillion as chair.
Second that nomination.
Senator Pillion is nominated for the position of chair. Are there any other nominations for this position? If not, a motion would be in order to close nominations.
Move to close nominations.
I second.
All those in favor for Senator Pillion to be elected as chair, please vote by saying aye.
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 Senator Pillion is re-elected as chair. Mr. Chairman, congratulations, and turn the process of nominations and elections back over to you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the confidence that the authority has shown in me leading and moving us forward. It's all of us moving together, sure. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair. Does anybody have any nominations for vice chair?
Move to have Sarah Melton appointed vice chair. Please.
Are there any other nominations? Or is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Right? We have a motion and a second. If there are no other nominations, the motion to close the nominations is in order.
So move.
Second motion.
Right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Dr. Sarah Melton be elected as vice chair, please vote by saying aye.
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 Congratulations, Dr. Melton, being re-elected as vice chair.
Thank you for your confidence again. Keep trying to do my very best.
Now nominations are in order for the office of secretary.
I would like to make a nomination for Tim Spencer to be secretary.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. Are there any other nominations? If not, a motion to close nominations is now in order.
Make that motion to
Okay, we have a
close.
motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close nominations. All in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
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 All those in favor of Tim Spencer be elected as secretaries, please vote by saying aye.
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 Congratulations, Tim Spencer, for being elected as secretary. All right, nominations are now in order for the office of treasurer. Nominations again do not require a second. However, any nominations that the persons may second nominations just to show their support of the nominee. Do we have any nominations from the authority?
Nominate Mr. Holland as be reappointed or re-elected as treasurer.
I
We have a
second.
nomination. All right, we have a nomination and a second for Jim Hollaby to be nominated as treasurer. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Congratulations, Mr. Holland, for being elected as treasurer. So that completes the annual election of officers. Now we'll move back to the policy of the conflict of interest. I'm assuming that we need to adopt that policy. Does anybody have any questions for James on that policy that was discussed earlier? Most of us, I think, are very familiar with that. So do I have a motion to adopt the policy of the conflict of interest?
I'll make a
Move
motion
to-
to adopt the policy of the conflict of interest.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. We now have a proposal for an abatement resource coordinator position.
Yes, sir.
Tony, you want to talk about that?
Yes, sir. So members of the board, you have in your packet the job description for what would be a new full-time position working on your staff as a abatement resource coordinator. This position would be, think of as a coach for cities and counties to help them identify areas where they may have gaps and to help them figure out how to use opioid abatement authority funds as well as direct shares that they receive from settlements to the most benefit and would be at the same time a person who's knowledgeable of services, providers, and the local landscape. This position would be located in the general vicinity of Bristol, Abington. Our intent is to have a staff person in this part of the state that is very difficult to access from Richmond, where the rest of us are located. So this would extend our staff into that region of the state and put us collectively between the Richmond office and this person within a 2 to 3 hour driving range of any geographical part of the Commonwealth.
Any questions? Comments?
And Mr. Chairman, I would add, this person would be expected to travel quite a bit around that region. We would anticipate providing a vehicle to support that. And we are specifically looking for somebody who has a strong background in this field and could potentially even be a person either who has lived experience or has worked with many people that are in recovery and really has walked the talk, if you will. And none of us on your staff are addiction experts. We're looking for an addiction and recovery expert.
Any comments from the authority or any questions? Do you need a motion to approve this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We would appreciate that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the abatement resource coordinator position.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And Tony, I'll turn it back to you for proposal on accountant position.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, I neglected to mention that we did review both of these positions with Dr. Melton in the capacity of chair of the hiring committee in advance. The accountant position would be simply that, an accountant to work in our office. We have, you saw the numbers that Rich Schweiker laid out. We need an accountant to be, we've known all along that accountant would be needed. There was some question in our mind about whether we would use the resources of the Virginia Department of Health and one of their accountants, and where we've landed is that we really feel like this accountant needs to be working for you as the board. Since you and the staff have accountability for how these funds are spent. And we think this would be the most efficient, effective way to move forward.
Any questions or comments concerning the accountant position that Tony's just described? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? All right, so that motion carries as well. All right, with that, I think we are running a little bit over anyway and probably or ready to head across the hall, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you so much. All in favor, say aye.
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 What?
Board members across the way, if you wouldn't mind sitting towards the front of the room, please take notes. We will take notes as well and share them with you afterwards. Feel free to step out if you need to for a bathroom or because we might be an hour and a half, 2 hours in this session. Also, at some point, if you can, please try to catch up with Dr. Melton to hear about this prescription illicit RX name of the conference.
The prescription and heroin summit, it's the national summit. That's every year in Atlanta in April. Right, yeah, it's right after, it starts the Monday after Easter. We would really like a large contingent from our authority to attend. It is excellent, but I can give you more details because I think I've only missed 1 year since it started. So.
You'd like hearing here?
It's taking a year. I did talk about Virginia and opioid abatement last year before we got started. So I'm thinking, let him talk. Share everything you've done in a year.
Okay.